What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Mohawk Motors. My name is Jason. So it's time I get started on the electrical system for Matt's K10. Now, I'm going to try to give you as clear an explanation on everything that I'm doing in this thing. If you have questions, put them in the comments. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. But this one's relatively straightforward. We don't have to make a ton of changes. So hopefully I won't get lost in the weeds and this will be helpful to you. Let me show you what I'm going to start with. We're in the thick of new baby plus a 2-year-old plus a 4-year-old. So I get like an hour at a time to come out and work on stuff right now. So I'm going to try to do as much as I can in this hour. And we'll probably have to pick up on another day and pick up on another day to get through this whole electrical portion. Let's get to it. All right, so first let me tell you what harness I'm using. Now this is a complete uncut, unmolested, unmodified harness from a 2005 Yukon Denali. I got to looking through the harness original to the 6-liter that we're using to the LQ4, and there were places where rodents had chewed into it. It looked like somebody had been in there and butchered in an aftermarket anti-theft system at some point, and I don't want that in this harness. I want as unmolested as possible, so Matt will never have any problems with this harness. I had this one on the shelf. Like I said, it's from a 2005 Yukon Denali. Yukon Denali is the exact same drivetrain as this 2006 Sierra Denali. An LQ4 6-liter engine, a 4L65 automatic transmission, and an all-wheel drive transfer case. Obviously, we're not using the all-wheel drive transfer case, but that's not going to impact anything that we're doing here. There are a few subtle differences. In 2006, they changed the throttle pedal. 2005 to 2003 is a little bit different, but function is the same, so it's not going to hurt anything. It's not going to make any difference in what we're doing. Now, the first thing that I want to do to this harness is convert it from 4L65 transmission to 4L80 transmission. And it's really not that complex of a conversion. We're going to move one wire in this connector, and then we're going to take 2 wires out of this connector and repurpose them to be our input speed sensor wires for the 4L80 transmission. So I'm going to get things geared up here. I'm going to try to get you at a perspective so you can see what I'm doing clearly, and then we'll get this little conversion done. All right, so what I've got here, this is our factory 4L65 transmission connector. We need to get this little elbow off of here first. So we'll just flip up this little clip. There's a little clip on the inside. A clip on the other side. We can move that out of the way. And then we have this white retainer we also need to get out of our way. And just some well, I'm gonna have to go find that. Let me find that and I'll be right back. All right, I found it. So what we need to do here, we're gonna look at the back side of this connector, and on all these pins on the back here, they're all labeled with a letter A, B, C, D, etc., so on and so forth. Now what we need, we actually are gonna be working on 3 of these wires down here. The first one we're gonna get rid of, or actually we're not getting rid of it, we're removing it, is this white wire over here, all the way on the end in position S. We're going to unclip it from the other side, which we'll use one of our little depinning tools. You could probably do this with just a pick. I just have depinning tools because I do so much electrical work. So position S, there's that wire. We're going to pry the little retainer out so it'll let it come out. Hopefully. Sometimes they're tricky. We'll get it. There we go. So we've got the white wire out of S. Next, right down here, we have a little tan with a black tracer in position T. We're going to take that one out. I'm trying to do this where you can see what I'm doing, but I can also see what I'm doing, and sometimes that's tricky. There we go. We got our little tan with black tracer out of T. And then we have a brown in position U. And we're going to take this brown from position U and we're going to put it in up here in position S. There we go. So out from U and into S. There we go. Now that does leave us with an empty hole down here in T and U. What I'm going to do is cut a little piece of spare wire that I have here and poke it in there just to keep that sealed up. I got my little pieces of wire. Just going to poke them down in like so. And then make a little space because we're going to repurpose the white and the tan with black tracer to become our input speed sensor wires. So I'm going to peel this tape apart and give myself a little bit of room to work here. And delume just a bit because I want my input speed to come out in about the same location as my oxygen sensor wire. There, that should be good. I'm just going to wrap this back up like I was never there. Put the looming back on it. Get everything tucked back in there where it goes. There we go. Take my little pin retainer / lock. Make sure all my pins are still where they belong. Push that back in. And then get our little protective cover back on. There we go. That part is ready. And that leaves us with our little tan and white wires over here. So for these, I'm going to cut these ends off because I don't need them. I'm going to give myself a little bit of slack on the end. I'm going to save these pins because they'll come in handy for something else later. So I'm going to cut those off, save them for later. And then these wires are going to get connected to my new speed sensor plug, which this is from Amazon. I think it was like $2 or $3, no big deal. We'll just get them soldered together. I'm going to do white to white just to make it easy for myself to remember, and black to tan with black tracer. It really doesn't matter which you connect to which because all this is going to be is a speed sensor signal. There's no positive or negative or anything like that to it, just on off on off on off pulses. So we'll I'll get these soldered together and then I'll bring you back. Okay, got my two connections made, all heat shrunk up, insulated, good, ready to go. I'm gonna do just a little tape right down here at the base so I don't pull all over like crazy. Looming here. I'm just going to loom this wire. Because after all, it is going to be under the truck. exposed to the road and dirt and whatever else Matt drives this thing through. So I want to try to protect them. Plus, I think it makes it look original and professional. Ta-da, there we go. All right, so that portion is ready. We got to do the other end of the harness where the PCM connectors are. All right, so I've got my PCM connectors. Like I said, this is an 05, so we have a blue-green. If yours is 99 to 02, it should be blue-red. But our white wire will be in the blue connector. Our tan with black tracer is going to be in my green, could be your red. So first thing we got to do, we got to get these little covers off the back so we can see the pin numbers and so we can get the wires out. So when I do these, I just kind of get a little pocket screwdriver in there behind the little push ear, try to pry it out. And just broke the tip off my little screwdriver. There we go. Okay, so in my blue connectors here, first I got to take the little retainers off. Actually, only just the one retainer. Our white wire comes to pin blue connector, pin 79. So there it is. There it coming out. There we go. Now the trick is going to be, we got to get this pin over to our red connector, well, our green connector, which, you know, there's a lot of stuff in the way. I'm going to try to do it without making too much of a disaster of this. I'll bring you back once I get there. How about that? All right, I got it fished out of there. Now I can put my little retainer back because I don't need any more pins out of that one. And then I take my wire and I'm going to bring it over here and it's going to go in pin 22. So I'm going to take off this retainer. Pin 22 of your red or green, depending which year PCM you have. '20, 21, 21, 22. And it helps to just poke a hole through the little rubber seal before you try to shove your wire through. There we go. Come on, little fella. There we go. That's where it needs to be. And then we need to do our tan with black tracer. All right, so now we need to get our tan with black tracer. And that one is in this green for me, maybe red for you connector, pin 42. So I'll take my little lock off. There's 42. Tan with black tracer, what I'm expecting it to be. There we go. And now it's going to come over and we're just going to put it into fish it through there. And it's going to go into pin 23, right next to the other one. So we'll poke it through first. And then stick it in there. Ta-da! Put our little retainers back on. And then we'll get these wires tidied. Little covers back where they go. Might have to help it a little. There we go. There's the green one. And there's our blue one. And we'll put our little bluing back. Actually, I'm going to give that a little tape wrap just to keep it tidy. Come back here. Just a little stay where I want you tape. And Shazam. You can't even hardly tell I was there. So now the harness is ready for a 4L80. Now that said, we still have to make changes in the computer, because if we just hook this up and the computer still thinks it's running a 4L65, we're going to have problems. We're going to go in at a later time, do a segment swap in the computer so it knows that it's running a 4L80 transmission instead of a 4L65 before we try to start it up, drive it, anything like that. But the wiring portion is ready for the 4L80E now. I'm gonna quickly print out a label and label input speed just to make sure I don't mix it up by accident and nobody else mixes it up by accident in the future, because the input and output speed sensors, they're the same plug. It would be very easy to mix up. All right, everybody, we're putting in these nighttime hours again. Gotta keep chipping away at this wiring work for Matt's K10. And I can't put it off any longer. I gotta get into getting the fuse and relay panel wired. So I'll tell you a little bit more once I get set up here. I think I've got most of the tools I'm gonna need grabbed out, and I'll give you a concise explanation of what I'm doing, and then the more detailed parts I'll try to explain as well. So let's get this going. It's a big project. I guess I shouldn't say big project, it's a lot of wash, rinse, repeat, which makes it kind of time consuming. So let's get to it. All right, guys, so this is the fuse relay panel that I like to use. That's made by True Mods. You can get it on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description for you. I really like this one because it is all weatherproof. The lid is weatherproof. The back side of the relays are all weatherproof covers. It comes with the weatherproof plugs for all of your fuse backs. So I have no hesitance to mount this in the engine compartment. If it gets splashed or anything else, it's not going to hurt it. It also comes with the relays that you need. It comes with 6. I'm only actually going to be using 4. 2 for all my ignition positive feeds, so injectors, ignition coils, the heated oxygen sensors, those sort of things. 1 for the starter and 1 for the fuel pump. So there'll be 2 open spaces here. Matt can add something else to them in the future if he likes, maybe some lights or I don't know, exhaust cutouts, whatever he decides to do. And It includes all the wire terminal ends to build your own wiring and get it all finagled into here. It comes with the little mounting brackets if you want to use them. If not, it can be flush mounted against a piece of flat stock. It even comes with a weather seal for the backside if you're going to flush mount it to something. It comes with a little assortment of fuses, and all you really need to make this thing get it hooked up, is your wire strippers, your wire crimpers, and some wiring. I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on how to do this. I might give you a brief explanation on how a relay works if you're not familiar. But other than that, it's a lot of wash, rinse, repeat. Feed power to my fuse spots over here, and then run a jumper from the load side of the fuse to the feed side of the relay, etc., etc. Do that 4 times over and over again, and then yeah, we're done. Do the same for grounds. I'll run my 4 ground wires, get those put where they need to be, and probably just put you on time lapse and bring you back when there's something interesting to show you or something I can explain in a little more detail. Alright, so I've got this about as wired as I can get it without putting it into the truck and connecting up my ignition positives from the truck harness and my couple little control wires from the PCM. So before I get too far into this, I'm going to give you a quick explanation of how a relay works. So most relays will come with a little how it functions diagram on it. Now, to my knowledge, most relays, pin 85 and pin 86 are the control side. And basically all they do is one of them needs to be a ground, it doesn't matter which one, and the other needs to be your switched power source. When you give it power and ground, it activates the electromagnet, and that electromagnet pulls a little arm inside of the relay that makes contact on your load side. And the load is typically pin 30 and pin 87. I like to run those as power supply on pin 30, and my actual load item, whatever it may be, fuel pump, starter exciter, whatever it is, on pin 87. Now, I explain all that to you so I can actually show you what I've got here. So as I said, my supply power, which is the power that I want to feed to all of my loads, ignition coils, starter exciter, fuel pump, etc. These 4 wires here will be hooked up to battery power. And they'll go through a fuse, and then that fuse will come out, and it's going to go to pin 30 on each relay. And remember, pin 30 is power being supplied to the load. Now, on the control side of these relays, I've wired all of these so that pin 85 is the ground. And I've got my 4 black grounds all twisted together right here. I have it wired so that pin 86 is the supply for the control. Now, the reason I word it that way is because the PCM, when it turns the fuel pump on, it doesn't do that by providing power, it does that by providing a ground. When I want to engage the starter, I'm going to do that by supplying power. So I'll need to hook these up, not all exactly the same when I'm in the truck and getting things connected to the PCM. Same for the ignition sources. The computer controls the ignition relays through the ground side. So I'll need to make sure I get that ground wire hooked up to the correct terminal in the PCM. Aside from that, that's pretty much it. I will put a fuse in line to these 4 power wires, just in case something should rub through and short or somehow overload the system, the whole bank. So there will be an inline fuse to these. And outside of that, it's just getting everything connected in the right places, both to the PCM or to power or to ground, depending on how that relay is controlled. And I'll give you more explanation when I'm actually hooking things up in the truck, just to make it a little bit easier to understand. But that's all I can do for now. I can't go any further with it until I am putting it actually into the truck. So when I get to that point, I'll bring you back. Hopefully it'll be daylight so you can really clearly see what I'm doing. Alright everybody, so it wound up I have way too much footage to try to condense down into one video. So in order to try to actually give you some useful information and not have the video be super long, I'm going to break it into 2 parts for you. So that's the end of this one, part 1. You'll see part 2 next week. And I hope this helps you out if you're doing something similar. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and until the next video, take care.